Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Dyslexia Nigeria is live today with Aisha Yesufu, and we are discussing dyslexia. Hi, Atikolo. Hi, Tomiwa. Hi, Tommy. Thank you for joining us today. Hello, thank you for joining us. Welcome everyone who's here. Thank you for joining us. We have an exciting guest with us today. Aisha Yesufu is going to be with us in a minute, and we're going to be talking about dyslexia. As you may know, October has been Dyslexia Awareness Month, and November is the month of our dyslexia dialogue. And in preparation for that, we are continuing the conversation about dyslexia, and we are lending a voice to bring dyslexia inside out. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us today. So if you have any questions you'd like us to ask Aisha Yesufu when she joins, please send them in the chat box and I'll be happy to help. And I will also share our contact information so that you can reach us at Dyslexia Nigeria. And I'm going to type that here right now. You can join us on WhatsApp if you would like. It's 0810-753-1682. And you can find us at www.dyslexianigeria.com. Thank you for joining us today. We're so excited that you're here, and we cannot wait for Aisha Yesufu to join us. Mrs. Yesufu will be talking with us about dyslexia. I know it's such an unlikely topic, I think you might think, for her to talk about. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I believe Mrs. Yesufu is here. Is she here? Good afternoon, Mrs. Yesufu. I've accepted. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Such a pleasure to speak with you. I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. I know you're very busy, and this means so much to us here at Dyslexia Nigeria, and for everyone who cares about dyslexia, to hear from you, someone that we trust, that we love, that we respect. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing what you do.
Please?
Yes,
Thank you so very much. I'd love to introduce you. I know everyone who hears your name and who sees this image thinks of you and knows that it is you, but I would still like to introduce you. Mrs. Yesufu is an active Nigerian citizen. She is unapologetic about her stance in fighting for justice and equity. I think we've her video. Mrs. Yesufu, can you hear me? Oh, I think her video has lost. Oh dear, I think she's dropped off. Let's see if she connects again right now. Hello everyone for joining us. We're so excited to see you here today. We are live with Mrs. Aisha Yesufu, who will be talking with us about dyslexia. She was here a minute ago and her network, I think, has acted up, but that's okay. I know she's going to be back. Let's just give her another minute or two. In the meantime, if you have any questions you'd like us to ask Mrs. Yesufu during this conversation, please send it in the chat box and I will be happy to ask it on your behalf. Mrs. Yesufu, are you back? Yes, you're back. Hi, I can
Yeah,
see you. Can you
thank
hear
you.
me?
I'm back. Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. So many people in the chat box were echoing exactly what I said, that you are someone that we all love and respect. I know your name carries its own weight, but I would still love to introduce you as an active Nigerian citizen. I know that you're unapologetic about your stance in fighting for justice and equity. You're a businesswoman. You teach financial literacy, which I didn't actually know until today. And you empower people to be financially independent and to have a voice to demand for good governance. And I know you also do this through your organization, Citizens Hub. But apart from that, we were delighted to see the news when your son graduated, to see that he had absolutely excelled and reached the peak of academic excellence. And I know as a mother, you were so excited. Maybe we can start on that high note. How did it feel
Yeah.
for you to be at that graduation ceremony?
It was surreal. This was something. So I might be speaking a bit low because I'm actually in a banking premise. So they had to give me their office to do this meeting because otherwise I'll have to
Okay,
come and do something. I will miss, if I start going back, I will miss it. So my voice, I might keep it down because they
thank
are out
you.
there working. And so
It's
for me, it
okay.
was surreal. Thank you so much. It was unbelievable. It was something that I had thought would never happen. I remember when my son was in primary school, and I said to myself, if he ever graduates, that I'm going to run around the field of the graduation ground. And so for me, it was something that we thought was going to be impossible. So just being there that day and actually seeing him graduate was such an amazing and such an impossible thing that really, it was like a miracle. And I remember when my son, after he finished the exam, he was like, okay, results are out. He went into his portal and he said, oh, he doesn't have any course. You know, every year, every semester, when they go in, you see the courses you're supposed to write. And he was like, we're like, it's like you've graduated. Oh. But even he was like waiting. We too were like waiting, like, because there's always one to with my son, it's never straightforward. There's always one thing. So we're like all holding our breath. And then the next thing, the graduation list came out. His name was there. That was when we just started. That started, just being joyous. But before let me just quickly also add that there was a day that my son got C in maths, and I think he was still in Nigeria at that time. He was in year 8 or year 9. Yeah, it was year 9, which is that's the British system, which is our GS3. And he got a C in maths. And I picked him up from school. And when I saw that, we started singing in the car. We put our music to the loudest volume and we were singing and we were shouting and we were screaming in the car. And I'm sure people who were driving by would have been like, what's wrong with these crazy people? So we're just singing. And this was something that happened when he was like 13. I think he was around 13. And he would share it with a friend of mine that he stayed with in the UK during holidays when he was like 18. So that meant how touching that moment was for him. And for me, like, it was
Absolutely.
always about his effort and never about his grade. Yeah.
And that's something absolutely key that you just said. I know that we're going to learn so much from you today about parenting a child who is dyslexic, but it's about the effort and not the grade. I think is something that I want people to always remember, throughout this conversation and thereafter. But when did you realize that he was dyslexic?
So when I realized he was dyslexic, I think he was around 2 years. That
Okay.
was when he started school. That was 2001. So he was born 1999. So that would be 1999, 2000, 2001. Yeah, he was two years plus. So that's when he started. When he started his pre-nursery, and he was lagging behind. And there were so many things. And I was like, there's something wrong. He's my first child. And I was like, something is definitely off. And I kept saying to myself, it's as if my son either had dyslexia or ADHD. Something is off. And they were like, oh, Aisha, you read too much. Which one be dyslexia? What's dyslexia? Aisha, go and say that. And I was a young mother, and he was my first child. And then the teachers were like, oh, all children are like that. They're always like that. Don't worry. stop calling things on yourself. You know, the usual Nigerian kind of mentality.
Yes,
But
I
I knew
know.
something was wrong, and then he was just so behind different things that he could do. And I just listened to them. And for me, I really feel bad about that because I ought to have done, I didn't do enough for my son. And actually, when he turned 18, I apologized to him. There were so many things I should have protected him from, I should have done. I felt I didn't do enough. But the only good thing that happened is that even though I didn't specifically have a diagnosis that he was dyslexic, but most of the things that I did was along the line of helping someone who was dyslexic. For example, like all this, I would do flashcards. I used to buy
Yeah.
cardboard paper. I would buy cardboard paper. I would cut them in square. There were no places where you could just go and get flashcards, not like you have today, even online. And I would write them, and I would use this sellotape to sellotape all the parts. And so he had them, his
Wow.
alphabet, his numbers, 2-letter words, 3-letter words, colors, everything. It was
Wow.
crazy. Like you literally could see everybody. In short, when he was in jail, pre-nursery, I came to the teacher and said, look, there's no need of moving him. I want him to go back. Oh no, just move him. He was struggling. Let me give you an example. For example, colors. He's
Yeah.
by second term, his mates had mastered their colors. My son didn't know his colors until he was in nursery 2, which was like 4 years after. And so it was quite a struggle. So I knew at year 2, by the time he was 2, that yeah, something was wrong. And I suspected dyslexia or ADHD.
What's the problem? I mean, you say that you didn't do enough, but honestly, you did do a whole lot that was relevant and that helped in his success. You paid a lot of attention. For you to have noticed signs in preschool, you were paying attention and you were dedicated to finding a way to helping him learn. And that's really the role of a parent, to be their child's best advocate. How
Yeah.
supportive was the school for you when you realized he was having these challenges?
The school wasn't so. For the school, I'm a hands-on mother, so that's the kind of thing I do. Whatever I do, I put in 100%. I don't. I'm a very passionate person. If I'm going to be a mother, I'm going to be a mother. If I'm not going to be a mother, I'm not going to be a mother.
I'm not going to
And
do
so, right
it.
from I'm not going to do it. Right from when I was a teenager, I knew I wanted just 2 kids. I didn't want more than that, and so I devoted everything to them. And even after 2 kids, a lot of people keep saying, "Oh, do you want to have another?" I'm like, "No." I know there was a time somebody asked me and said, "What if you get pregnant?" I said, 2 things will happen. If I end up having that child, I'm either putting that child up for adoption or my husband has to do everything. No, I can't do it. It's as simple as ABCD. I don't do things I can't do. It's as simple. Like right now, I'm not a motherly person, but I love my kids and I give also. From that, I taught my children. So I've been like their lesson teacher, their everything from their notes, writing ABCD. Like with my son, I taught him ABCD. I taught him the Arabic, how to read Arabic, Alifuba, Uta, Ufa, and all of that. So I was such a hands-on this. I was friends with all of their teachers. I was that parent that my kids knew if there was anything that had to do with the school, and they said only one parent came,
It will
they
be
knew it was me
you.
that was sure for me. So I was that. So I worked with them and I kept, going. So because for me, it wasn't really the school, but my relationship with the teachers, and I was ready to learn.
Right.
For example, like my son, what I did, it was a very good school. That he was in Kaduna. That was where he started the Essence International School in Kaduna. So what I would do with the teacher, I would get everything they needed to do. And in nursery school, they have this thing on the walls, things that they do. I
Yep.
will replicate all of them in the house. So when he left school, we had another school that we were going into. So because the school didn't know that, this was a problem. And so nothing was done. The primary school I was just having to be there, struggling with him, doing all the work. There were so many things. Some of the signs, like my son is a textbook case of dyslexia. Everything, including motion sickness. It
Wow.
was with him, yeah, including motion sickness.
Can you
Like
tell
if
us
it's
some of the
understand.
signs that you noticed?
Okay, for example, shoes. It took him forever. He couldn't know his left and right, what shoe to wear. He didn't speak on time. When he will even start speaking, he will like, if you're like, what is this? He'll just say, Amir. Anything you ask him, those kind of things. Speaking was a problem. He couldn't speak. his letters, A and B, he will mix them up, M and W, 21
Wow, these
and
are
12.
classic signs.
Yeah, for example, if you say 8 plus 4, I mean, my son is writing 21. And you're like, are you okay? Even 8. You know, oh, maybe let's say maybe you said, how do you do? You say, for example, 13, maybe 19 plus 3, right? That's no 19 plus 2. That's supposed to be 21, right? He will write 12.
Yes,
And he was so
because he's
frustrated. And I
swapping
think
it around.
yes, it took me a long time before I realized my son was swapping them. So he, instead of 23, he probably write 32 for you. And instead of
32.
32, he's writing 23. Instead of M, he's writing a W. Boy, he's writing DOY. Bag, he's writing DAG. You know, and then sometimes he mixes them up. And then sometimes you're just teaching. And then the other thing is that you will teach him. He will get it, he understand it. And the next time you come, everything has gone. So it was so frustrating. And you're like, what's going on? So motion sickness is like in the car. The first time the motion sickness happened was in 2010. We were coming in from London to back to Abuja. And all of a sudden, we started vomiting. What is this? We had to get wraps and everything, take care of him. So from there, he started doing it. Just later, and I realized that, oh, dyslexia also, they have motion sickness. So in the car, he just throws up in the, so what we do now when he's traveling, even up to today, he doesn't eat. He doesn't put anything in his stomach for him to be able to, for him to be able to get that. So the school didn't really, but I was the one who was constantly. I remember when he was saying, pushing, oh no, sometimes my husband will say, we just it's like you just, I might get emotional. It's crazy. I remember when he was in primary 4, I think 3, his primary school teacher called me and she said, how many kids do you have? I'm like 2. And she was like, don't have any other one. You don't have the emotions to be able to deal.
You don't have the emotional
bandwidth. Yes. I'm always crying, things weren't working. We're going for open day, it's tears, it's everything. And so it was so frustrating. But my son, we finally, when he went through primary, in primary school, I mean, by primary 3, I knew he was struggling too much. And I said, look, he had gone to primary 4. I said, no, there's no need. He needs to come back. And he repeated primary 3. And I spoke with him. And for me, I'm very close, super close with my children. We're friends, we talk a lot. I'm very strict also, but we're very close. They share everything with me. And my son has this like very huge head, though he has grown now and he has grown into his head. But when he was small, he had a very huge head and a very tiny neck. And I was always scared he would break his neck. So we didn't allow him to do all this stumbling. And he has a wide nursery. And so the first year when he was going into school, I said to him, look, I know kids can be very vicious. And I said to him, look, this is how you look. This is who you are. And if anybody says to you that you have a big head or you have your nose ring, but even the nose has even gone in now. He's quite a handsome dude right now. I said, and they say, just say to them, oh, fantastic. That means your eyes are working. Because I'm like, you do know you have a big head, right? So that's who you are. I mean, accept it. And so that in terms of self-esteem, self-worth, I really worked on it.
Absolutely. I mean, there are a couple of things that I would love to pick, sort of highlight from what you said before you carry on. First of all, some of the common signs of dyslexia, you've mentioned a lot of them. Swapping their shoes early on, swapping the letters, swapping numbers, those are some classic signs of dyslexia. And it really happens because of the way the brain is viewing the information, processing what it's seeing. It's not that he didn't know, and it was not that he's not intelligent. He is a very intelligent boy. It's just the way he was learning that information was something that you had to highlight. And also even something as simple as the way he looked, making him see himself for the way he is and accepting his own strengths. I know you haven't spoken about that specifically for dyslexia, but even for the way he looked, you highlighted that confidence in him, in his own self and his own ability. And that's something that I would like anyone who's listening to remember, that especially when our children are struggling, we must be the ones to point out what is good about them and to appreciate and love what is good about them and help them to do that as well.
Absolutely. It's it's very necessary to continue to instill that self-worth and self-esteem in the kids, because what they do, especially in school, they kill it. I'll give you an example. There's something that I remember now. When they finished nursery school, nursery 2, and they had this activity, school activity that they would always do. My son was the only child who wasn't part of it. So in a way, so I had, in terms of academics, I was the one putting in the effort, having a relationship with the teachers and everything. But you find out that because he wasn't doing so well academically, he was always sidelined, sort of like sidelined. He wasn't allowed to do anything that had. And this is somebody who is so creative, who is so jovial. He makes the people laugh in the class. He's so confident, and mingles with adults, and so almost like the class clown, always making people laugh and stuff like that. But he wasn't allowed to do any of this thing because they felt they would rather relate more with the academic, kids. And so by the time my son was going to primary 4, I made him a repeat. But before then, I did a lot of pep talk with him, built up his confidence. Well, look, it doesn't matter. It's not, don't allow anybody to laugh at you. This is what it is. And we're very close, myself and myself, even up to today. We're extremely close. And so we did that. He started, he repeated. And that year he did, because I was so on him. So we learn. So what I do with my kids, even when they were little, we read every day. We read 1 hour. Yeah. They wake up 5 a.m. They get ready. They say their prayers, and then we read the Quran. We learn the Quran. So I taught my kids ABCD. I taught them the Quran, also Arabic. So they read that, and then from 6 to 7 they read. So you read from 6 to 7. 7 we're on our way
to school. Oh, Mrs. Yesufu, I think we've lost you there. I think the internet connection is acting up again. But for anyone else who's just joined, welcome and thank you for joining us today. We are speaking with Mrs. Aisha Yesufu, who you might know very well, an active Nigerian citizen who is passionate about her fight for justice and equity, but also is the mother of a dyslexic child. Her son has dyslexia, and she's sharing with us her experience. I think she's dropped off now, and I know she'll join again. But she's sharing with us her experience mothering a child who has dyslexia. There's some great nuggets she shared already. The first one is that you should notice the signs when you see them. She could spot the signs of dyslexia in her child from when he was in preschool. And some of those signs include difficulties learning nursery rhymes, swapping shoes around left and right, swapping letters, B's and D's, P's and Q's, mixing up letters that look alike and words that look and sound alike. She's also talked about building relationships, so being your child's best advocate, talking with the school, building relationship with the teacher so that they understand your child and they know how to support your child. Being committed, she didn't give up. I mean, you must know her, in all the endeavors she has, we know that she doesn't give up in what she does, but specifically with supporting her son, she never gave up on finding ways to help him learn. And she's talked about doing resources on her own, phonics cards, flashcards, reading daily, supporting every day. She was committed and she tried to find what worked. She's also shared with us celebrating their wins. Every time that he succeeded at something, she praised the process and not the outcome. It wasn't that he got a C in math or an A in math that mattered. It was that he put in the effort to get whatever grade it was that he got that really mattered. And she tried to get useful resources and to find techniques that really worked for her child. And those are some of the key nuggets we've gotten from her today. And I'm hoping that she can join us again. I know the network is quite bad. She's quite busy and she's joined us from the bank. So I can appreciate that. But in the meantime, if you'd like to learn more about some of the signs of dyslexia that we've mentioned, please visit www.dyslexianigeria.com. I'm just typing that in the chat box right now for everyone to be able to see it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send us a WhatsApp message. You can reach us on 0810-753-1682. So these are our lines. You can contact us at Dyslexia Nigeria. We'll be happy to give you some more information. We also give free checklists for dyslexia. So if you're not sure if a child around you, someone around you has dyslexia, you can always contact us for a free checklist to just look at simple signs of dyslexia per the age of the person that you are concerned about. And you can always see if they're showing signs of dyslexia and need a consultation or an assessment. If you have any questions you'd like us to ask Mrs. Yesufu when she's back, please type them in the chat box and I will ask them as soon as she can connect again. In the meantime, our dyslexia dialogue is holding on Friday, this Friday, the 4th of November at 12 noon West African time. We have an exciting panel session, well, 2 panel sessions set up for you. A really good school toolkit that we're launching as well. And you don't want to miss that session. So please go on to our info on our Instagram page and register for the dialogue. It's free. It's only 2 hours long. It's 12 to 2. And we'll be glad to answer any questions, share nuggets. We have international speakers from Nigeria, from Ghana, from Kenya, the United States, from the United Kingdom. Everyone cares about parents, teachers, individuals having the tools to succeed with dyslexia. Oh, I feel sad that I think, oh, she's back. Let's see, just admitted her again. Let's see if she's back now fully. Hi, welcome back.
Thank you. There are no bad weather, only bad clothing. So we'll keep coming back if it keeps dropping.
I'm always here to accept as soon as you join.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I was just doing a recap of what we've learned from you so far. You know, you've also mentioned the effect it had on you. What made you feel you needed to take him abroad?
Okay. So we lived in Kaduna when he was quite young. So he did his primary school, pre-nursery, nursery, primary school there. And then we suddenly had to come to Abuja. Boom, out of the sudden. I was robbed twice within 6 months in my place of residence, which was close to my business. And the last one, actually, they came in as if they were bankers. So I normally have business meetings in my house because I don't like working in the office. And so that was in 2011. So I was robbed December 2010, and then June 2011. So the ones that came in the afternoon, dressed like corporate suits, and they came in. They had come in from another state, and they came to my house first. So my dad decided we were going to come to Abuja. My husband was like, okay, no, it's done. I should join him back in Abuja because I was in Kaduna because that was where my business was more located. So when I came to here, when I came to Abuja, I started scouting for schools. So I take my time. I don't just look at school from the outside or go in, check everything you're doing, check what you're doing. So as I went around, the school that really did fit for me was the Regent Secondary School. And so okay, we got in there, they had this thing.
Okay.
And so it was the school. So when we started, it was the school, the then the registrar of the school that now suggested, okay, let's have him tested. So that was then he was 12.
Okay.
So he was tested when he was 12. So the school was now like, okay, they had a psychologist who or this thing. So he now went to, so finally, by the age of 12, we had a diagnosis. My son was dyslexic. I'm like, oh my goodness. This is something that I had known.
This is what you've been saying all along.
10 years. And they kept telling me that, Aisha, you read too much book. What is dyslexia? Oh, Aisha, go and say that, stuff like that. So at 12 years, 10 years after I suspected my son was dyslexic, he was diagnosed of dyslexia. And so the school, so from that moment, as he was going pre-teen and everything, it was 12 years pre-teen, and the whole thing, you're falling behind and stuff like that. It has taken its toll on him, all the years of him being beaten.
Of course, it's a whole decade of school.
Let me just share this thing with you. When he was 16, he did another test. And I will say to you, there were some parts that the capacity of my son was that of a 4-year-old.
Wow.
So you see, no matter how much you beat him, he's not going to get it done because that's the way his brain is wired.
That's just the
A lot
way
of
his
these
brain
things.
learns.
So you don't get it. So when he got that diagnosis, for 1 year, my son did therapy. So every Friday, I'll pick him up from school. He was now in a boarding school. I'll pick him up from school. I'll take him to the place and everything. So, but yes, the school was quite good. They had different levels, and which was the beautiful thing. They had British system. And then at every class, even though you were in the same class, you were on different levels. So there was no pressure for everyone to be on the same level. The highly
Right. There
gifted
was a
ones, they are doing their own
differentiation.
thing. Yes, there was differentiation. So I love that about the school we're going on, but yet it wasn't enough. And then there were still teachers who felt they just didn't get it. Yeah, Regent tried a lot. And in the Regent Secondary School, I mean, an amazing school. That was the first time my son felt like in a school, and they gave him a role. There's a particular thing that I shared it. I think it's on my list where my son danced, played lagbaja. Up to today, some people think that that was lagbaja because he was all that.
Wow.
He
It's
did the
very
steps.
talented.
Yes, very talented, and that was his first time of ever being given a role in a school
Wow.
activity,
I mean,
and
he
he
would have
did
loved it.
super well. He's so creative. He did super well. And so, but along the line, there was still some gap. There were still some teachers when you're talking to them, he's dyslexic, he's this, he's that. They couldn't really get it. So I started looking
Understand.
for. I just realized I needed to give my son the best that he could, and I spoke with my husband like, no, for me it's about I brought this child into this world. My son didn't ask me to give back to him, and
I
so
have to
it
give
is
him
my
the best
duty
opportunity I can.
to give him, yes, to give him everything I can. It was one of the hardest decisions that we made. We had to take him to a school boarding in terms of looking at religion and all of that, who is going to be there.
Right.
Like he needed to give him the best. And so that was when we looked for a school in England. It was a school for children with learning disability. And so he went there. It's a small school, and so there was more on hands-on kind of education that he could
Right.
get and stuff like that. And so that was the decision we took to send him abroad.
I completely agree with that. I mean, as a parent myself, I can imagine the drive to want to give your child the best. And I know many people who are listening may feel, oh, how many of us can go abroad? Which I fully understand. The good thing is that I think
Absolutely,
Nigeria
and
is
that's the
beginning to
reason
wake up to
why
what
I advise.
dyslexia is. I mean, thank you
Yeah,
for coming on here.
exactly. And for me, I always say to people, there are a lot of children who are dyslexic. Those are the children we call Olodo. And we are not teaching them the way their brains are wired. We're not teaching them on the things they can do. And for me,
Exactly.
I fight the government and say, I could send my child abroad. Yes, even here in Nigeria, they went to the best of the top schools in Nigeria. But what about the child of a citizen who cannot afford to send their children abroad? Those children, the government needs
Exactly.
to do the needful for them and ensure that there's inclusive education for children also with learning
Precisely.
disability.
And and also, when you identify dyslexia early, like you did from preschool, the support that your son could have gotten could have happened in class. It didn't have to carry on for 10 years. It could have happened in class at
Mm-hmm.
that time. And what
Yeah.
we are also asking for, because I know we also have a petition on, because October was October Dyslexia Awareness Month. It's just a petition for teachers to be trained on understanding dyslexia. Then they can support children in the classrooms. But after
Most,
he
most,
got
most, most
the
Okay, let
sorry,
me
please
just add
carry on.
something. Most of them are even in denial of dyslexia.
That's
So
right.
there's this thing about the Nigerian thing, or is it an African thing? I don't know. Where something bad, they feel that negative. Like when I talk about
It's
my
not my
son,
portion.
yeah, it's not my portion kind of mentality. When I talk about my son's dyslexia, I've had people who come to say to me, "Oh, don't I feel like am I not ashamed to talk about it?" I'm like, no, my son is dyslexic, just the way that your son is fair, whatever. That's how it is. There's nothing. That's who he is. If it's dyslexia, there's nothing to be ashamed of it. And also with my son, can you hear me? I said, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. You're still here.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, okay then. I thought I was gone again. And so for me, like I said, dyslexia for me wasn't anything to be ashamed of. Like even when my son I knew when we found the diagnosis, I sat down with him. I'm like, okay, this is it. And you know what I did? Oh my goodness, I think I need to write a book on my whole this thing.
You
So one of the
should.
things I did was to find all the famous people dyslexic. and get all the books and put them together and give to my son. I remember the first time my son came running, oh, Thomas Edison, it's also dyslexic. This person is dyslexic. And he was like, oh, all like famous people and everything, was so excited.
Exactly.
You know, and that just sort of like lifted him up. So he actually spent a year doing therapy. And one of the things with dyslexia, I don't know whether we'll get to as we go on in the conversation, is that it's not just about learning, it's about everything in life. When it comes to organization, they are disorganized. They can't get things together. Their room is scattered. Even when it comes to, even like teenagers, for example, like in my son's own case, like first of all, I told you he's a classic case of dyslexia. And then in most things, he's below average. There are some dyslexic people who are extremely intelligent. It has different intelligence. So it's not as if you are dyslexic, you are dull. No. Even this thing, Einstein was dyslexic.
Absolutely, because dyslexia is actually not affected by intelligence at all. They're two very separate things. Yeah, it doesn't affect intelligence at all.
So you can be dyslexic and very intelligent. You can be dyslexic and not be that. So my son is below average in terms of intelligence. So he's not amongst the people who are very intelligent and dyslexic that you work on. And so things like, in terms of organization, instead of remembering to do things, instead of being scattered, even like growing up. So I had to, one of the things that even up to today, I had to work with is the fact that my son, for example, he's going to be 24. He's 23. He's going to be 24 March next year. But sometimes I still have to remember, when I'm like, oh, you should, then I remember, okay, no. I still have to look at him. In certain things, it's like a 16-year-old.
That's
so
right.
Coming up. So we are still having those pep talks. We are still doing things. So those are the things that you have to understand. And also when they go into adulthood, I didn't know about it until when he had to talk to a child who was dyslexic, and he was talking about the battle depression. You know, this world is now like where there's so much competition, there's social media, there's everything. So I constantly, I'm also like a therapist. There's so much pressure on them. Okay, my mates are doing this, my mates, and I'm like, Amir, calm down. I say, you're not in a race with anybody. You're doing your own race. And I constantly have to remind my son and say, look, you graduated from university. That was something we thought was impossible. You did it. Nobody else did it.
You've done it.
You did it. Achievement. I say, yes, you had to write maths 4 times, but you passed that math. Nobody did it for you. So you've achieved so much. Don't look at people who are doing so much now, who are ahead. No, just focus on yourself and just run your own race and do your own thing. So that's one thing that I'm constantly having to teach him and tell him, calm down, forget about what people are saying or people are doing, what your mates are doing. Just focus. And one thing I always say to my son is the fact that you are a good human being. And for me, that is more than any other thing. It's more than the A.
You're a
when it comes to
mother.
empathy, you are an A-star student. When it comes to being a loving person, when it comes to an honorable person, when it comes to being a law-abiding person, you are an A-star person. Yes, you are not an A-star when it comes to mathematics. When you are not, when it comes to physics, forget about it. That's the only thing in life. I will celebrate your A-stars. I mean, the schools that he went to in England, I got such good report about my son's behavior, how helpful he is, how, even the 2 schools, one, they wrote a letter to us and said, you must be proud to have him as a child and your country must be proud to have him as a citizen. The second school, so for me, those things are more than any ace that he will bring for me. And that's the thing I've always said to my son, and even up to today, because there's so much constant pressure. You have to be like this thing.
Exactly.
Do you know the irony of it all? I have 2 children, and they are opposite of each other. My daughter.
That's how siblings like to be.
Yeah, my daughter, she is so intelligent. She's amongst the top percentile of human beings. When she did her IQ test, the person who did it said if he was not the one that administered the test on her, I think she was like 10 when she did that. So what I constantly did, I never ever tried to pair them together. Everybody compare them. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. To compare them, no. Everybody had their own level. My daughter is an A-star student, fantastic. My son is the D, and sometimes we get to see fantastic. And so all I did was effort. So there was a time, though my daughter complained, and she was like, oh, why do we so celebrate my son when he gets this his little mark, and then her, even when she gets like an AA star, I like, because for you comes easy. He has to times
It's
what you would
easy.
just do for you to do. So I said, you already blessed with the brain. He isn't, and he works so hard, to get it done. And let me also say, so by the time my son went to school in England, he was taught along with his mental, the way his mental capacity is. One of the very annoying thing about dyslexia is that you constantly have to keep doing the assessment to prove you are dyslexic. The last one, when he was entering university, he had to do it, and he said, "Mommy, who will even want to be dyslexic?" And it was a battery of tests, because they don't want
Yeah.
situation whereby somebody is trying to get. So my son in England, he had a scribe, so he had someone who writes for him.
Good. Yeah.
He doesn't write, so he will just, because sometimes he models up the ideas in trying to write, because his brain is not connecting with the words, and so they get modeled up. So what he do, he will describe what he wants to say, and then somebody else will write it out for him. And so we take notes for him, ensure that he has those notes. And there were quite a number of, and there were other activities that he could do. That was for me the beauty of it. They were different. So that's why even when he went to university, he read filmmaking. He didn't do academics. When he was doing his A levels, he wanted to go to a
He
school
built
called
on
Gordon's.
strength.
Yes, on his strength. He wanted to go to a school called Gordon's. Many people say, why is he going for A level? I like, that's what he wants. That's what he's going to get. He went there, and the courses he did were arts, media studies, and photography. Those were what he did for his A levels. And then he went to university and he read BA filmmaking. So he's a
And he
filmmaker. He just finished.
excelled.
Yeah, he did. And
I
so, and
think
those
our
are
society, our
hands-on things.
society prioritizes literacy so much, reading,
Yeah.
writing, spelling so much that we forget just how much value there is to all of us beyond reading, writing, and spelling. And some of the things that you said you tell your son, those are things we have to remember to tell all children, especially children who are putting in exceptional effort, who have learning
Yeah.
difficulties or differences, that their person matters, their empathy matters, who they are matters, and what they are good at is enough. And they can build a beautiful life on what they are good at. We don't always
Absolutely.
have to judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, like that quote says, because then it's always going to keep thinking it's stupid, but it's not. It just belongs in the water. So, Mrs. Yesufu, what advice
Absolutely.
do you have for parents who have children with dyslexia?
So the first advice I'm going to tell them is the fact that love your child. Don't bother about what the society thinks. It's not the society, it's between you and your child. And remember that this child didn't ask to be born. You were the one who actively looked for this child. And so it's
Yeah.
an honor and a blessing for you to have your child. Don't ever compare your child with anyone, not even with their siblings. They have their own strengths, and work on the strengths. Don't focus on the weaknesses, work on their strengths, and build them up. Having a child with difficulty can put a strain on your marriage. So you have to, there are times where, things really get heated up, things really get hard. Sometimes, that feeling, it's almost like, oh, you're wasting so much money on this child and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, I have to. This child needs everything. So you must also work out your relationship with your spouse. It's just that you feel frustrated. There are times you cry. I mean, I've had a time, there was a time when my son went to England, of course, and then he didn't pass his GSC. I think he got carried away. I wasn't there to keep him focused. And then you forget that the children over there, they can be plumbers and everything will be okay with them. Their life over there is different from Nigeria and everything. So when he passed away, quite unhappy, because I felt he didn't, and he also admitted he didn't put his effort. If he had put his effort, and so when he failed, if he had put his effort and failed, I don't have a problem with that. But not putting your effort is what I have a problem with. And so we brought
That's
him back to
right.
Nigeria. He went to a school called Global College in Lekki, in Lagos, and he spent 1 year there. And what they did was hands-on. He had teachers to himself. He was doing one-on-one classes, but that's so expensive and everything. But that's one thing also people don't understand. It's very expensive having a child with challenges. You have to, and you may do so much extra more. And so he went through that. So remember that it's about their effort. It's not about just their results. And sometimes in the family, it can put a strain on your marriage. So you must be able to negotiate it, and
That's
don't
right.
let things the priority, prioritize their happiness, prioritize their wholesomeness. Don't prioritize what people are saying. And this world is not just about maths, being an engineer, a lawyer, any of those things. Is let them do what they can do and what they're very good at. And I think for me, those are the few things that I would say to. And don't listen to anybody when they tell you that you are too paranoid, if you suspect anything, go out for it. If your child is not getting this thing well, go and get them diagnosed. When you know what it is, you'll be able to better care for them and give them the best that you can give them as a parent. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for all those wonderful nuggets. I'm going to summarize them closer to the hour just before we leave. But before you go, you know, if you had your way, what would you request of the government?
If I had my way, I think for me it would be that there should be an inclusion of children with learning disability. There should actively be, what do you call it, a legislation on it, not just policies that might be a legislation that makes it mandatory for children to actually, if they have to be tested, children to be given the kind of education they need, to have teachers who are trained to understand what dyslexia is all about. And not just dyslexia, there are different learning disability, to be able to handle cases of this liability, to also have a room where they can have scribes. There are some, they're very brilliant, the ideas are in their head, but they can't put it down, and they need somebody to just say it and put it down. These are things that can also be done. And in terms of exams, like in other places, they give them extra time, they give them breaks because they are not able to concentrate and go on a stretch the way other kids are. So, for example, like writing WAEC, now you see nothing is being done for children that are having difficulty in learning. They just put them in the same time, the same space to do things. There are different time frames that could be done. So these are certain things. Legislature should be there to ensure that certain things are, and then policies also to ensure that they're being carried along. They are not excluded. And also, well, in a normal government, they say there are certain apparatus or devices that help children with dyslexic they have children with dyslexia. So there should be a situation whereby they're helping them get some of these things, either at a subsidized rate or something like that, that will help them on the things that they do.
Thank you so much. I know for people who are listening, it may sound like you've asked for a lot of things, but the truth is you've asked for three very simple things. Make the classroom inclusive, train the teachers, and provide what we call reasonable adjustments. So to have those accommodations that you said, whether it's resources to read properly, or it's a scribe, or it's technology, they're all resources that are assistive. And if a child is showing signs of dyslexia and they are screened, or they have a diagnostic assessment, then it's easy to be able to pinpoint what exactly they need at that time that can be provided. As long as we're all aware that some people need some support, and let's see what the support is and let's provide that support. Thank you so much, Mrs. Yesufu. How about to schools? What would you say to schools? I know we have huge school associations. What would you say to them about this?
To the schools, I think it's high time for them to understand that there's a high percentage of children who are dyslexic. It's actually very high, and they need to now begin to make provisions for those for the school, for the students. Just like the things I've asked of the government, also inclusiveness. Find out what level of dyslexia. Also work with psychologists that will be able to assess, because that was what the Regent Secondary School did for me and my son. I didn't even know to go and look for where he can be assessed. It was the school that brought that. It was the school that did it. Actually, I didn't even know that I could even go. Let me just go and even get a diagnosis for him. And so work with those psychologists that will be able to diagnose and give a diagnosis, and then help them. Train your teachers. There's nothing like people saying that God forbid and all of that. There's nothing wrong with a dyslexic child. A dyslexic child is as normal as everybody. Their brain is wired differently, and then we must make the effort to teach them in the way they will understand, rather than forcing them to learn in the way we teach. So it is all together. It's the school and the parents and the society that is failing to teach the dyslexic children the way they need to be taught. So they need to put that in place. Also make it and learn to include them in all the things they do. Learn to bring out, give A's not just in academic excellence, give A in empathy, in hard work, in effort, in the fact that people who are helping. Like my son,
Exactly.
one of the things, like in the UK, he was very good in the fact that he helped. That was one of the things they talked about in school, that he was always very helpful. The first school he went to, the secondary school he went to, there was a time they had like a flooding that he took on. He was helping and everything, and there are so many activities. They should expose them to different activities, not just to this thing. There was the first
And
time
you
my son
can
went to
find
UK.
their strengths.
Yes, amongst those things. He could swim, but not very well. But by the time he was doing this, he even swam for charity, like the length of Thames, River Thames, and they donated
Wow.
it to a hospice. He even came out in a newspaper. They put them in the newspaper. So expose them to different things. Don't limit children to just academic. There are some who will be good at talking, drama, dancing, different things. Hey, bring it on. Don't just limit, but let them understand that indeed there's dyslexia, and there's nothing wrong with being dyslexic, and a whole lot of amazing and famous people that have done great things, they are dyslexic. And let me just add
Dyslexic.
this for anyone. Yeah, I always say to my son, I say, look, the greatest lesson, because one of the things that for dyslexic children and adults, they find it difficult. Nothing comes easy for them. So they have mastered the art of failing, standing up, and continuing.
Of
So when you see that,
resilience.
when you yes, of resilience. And so when you get into adulthood, whatever you do, whether it's a business, they don't expect that it goes their way. It is more with those children who are intellectually gifted that always grow into adulthood, and they are frustrated when they meet the first thing that they are not able to accomplish, their
That's
intelligence, and
it.
so they don't know how to handle failure. But for dyslexic people, they're used to it. And so when they get up, they don't get bogged down. They feel they stand up, they continue. And it's such a beautiful thing to say. And you see a good number of them are being famous and doing so many great things. And we have some of them here in Nigeria too. It's just that some of them don't know they are dyslexic. Some of them are finding out, and then some of them are
It's not
ashamed
even
of the
some.
fact.
1 in 5 people is dyslexic. 1 in 5 people
Yeah,
is on the dyslexic spectrum. There's at least 3 to 6 children in every classroom that is on the
so
dyslexic
that's
spectrum. It's
20%.
so common.
Yeah, 20%. And so some people's own is mild. Some people, they are mildly dyslexic. They're, like you say,
Exactly.
it's a whole spectrum. Then some people are like the case, textbook is like, I literally sometimes look at this, I look at myself, I like my son, like check, 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 check. He just checks everything, everything, everything. But he's an amazing human being, and I'm really proud of. And I'm just like to share. He's so caring. He has empathy. He's so loving, and that's what I constantly remind him as he goes into adulthood. Where, because normally before he relates more with people who are younger than him because of his age, and because of his mental capacity.
Right.
And then right now he's 24. He's huge. If you see him, you think he's 35. And so if he's going to be playing with people much younger, you start looking at
It
what's
looks
wrong with this one.
strange.
And yes, he looks straight, and then he can't really go with his mates. And so I just say, just keep going. There was an incident that happened in London. He was staying in his university was the Regent University in London. And so when he was going, he saw a guy who was manhandling a girl, and he stood and he went to them, and the guy was like, "Oh, she's my girlfriend. Don't interfere." My son did interfere and ensured that the girl was protected, and followed her to the bus and
Wow.
ensured that she got onto the bus and she left. And after he called me, he was shaking and he was like, "Oh, even though I was afraid, London, sometimes knifing and everything could have happened. But I said,
Yeah.
you did an amazing thing, because you saw the way he was treating her." He said for him, he said like it was the way she was saying that it's his girlfriend, nobody should. And like, no, you don't have a right. Even though she's your girlfriend, you must treat her with decency and
Exactly.
respect. And so for
That
him,
empathy is his
that's the kind of
strength.
person. Yeah, that's the kind of person. A star in empathy, A star in caring, and for me, that's really something that it's really worthwhile to me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Super. Someone asked, how do you manage if you cannot afford to go to England? I know you said this before, but I think they joined after you said that. Would you mind just putting your
Okay.
words for that?
Okay, so the thing that has to happen is that even as a parent, you can start on something, talk to the school within your own self. You can learn on what to do. For example, in terms of, like I talked about, what was this thing called? Those flashcards,
But the
which I was
flashcards and other
doing. Yes, I
resources.
didn't even know. So those are things that you can do, help them. They just need to go on how is it to be done, what are the steps to follow and how to follow them. There are certain things they can't do, like maybe all those long multiplication and stuff like that. Some of them can't get it. They find the resources, learn on what to do, and then work with the school and work at their own level. But most importantly, keep encouraging them and don't just put in too much work on them. One of the things with dyslexic people is that they see whole, they don't see one. So where you are seeing bit by bit by bit, they see the whole thing. So that's why you see them, the way they think.
3D thinking.
Very deep thinkers, because they can see the whole picture. They don't. So you need to help them along that way in learning. There are so many resources online that you also can be helping them. So while the school is doing their bit, and also go to talk to the school and let them know this is the issue. Don't be ashamed. Don't ever be ashamed that your child is dyslexic. Don't ever be. That's a whole human being that you're blessed to have in your life, and so take that seriously. So go to the school and also meet the school and give them the things that they can do. Sometimes they need extra time. Sometimes they need, like for example, in my son's secondary school, in the regional school, they have like what they call a flashcard. Even when the teacher is talking in their book, they can show up to say they don't understand or one of those things. So it's something that, and I hope as we go on, we get to have more and more schools who are putting the issue
Absolutely.
of dyslexic.
I mean, Dyslexia Nigeria, I know that we're working with many schools now who are showing more interest, at least in teacher training, who are learning to identify and support children who have dyslexia. We do screening, we also do assessments, we do the diagnostic assessment. I know people who feel that they have to go abroad. You don't have to do that. You can come to Dyslexia Nigeria. We can do screening, diagnostic assessment, we can do support, we do coaching, like Mrs. Yesufu mentioned. Dyslexia also affects other aspects of life, like executive functioning, managing deadlines, organization, prioritizing. We can do coaching to support that as well. And we also sell resources that are helpful. And if you want to learn about dyslexia, we also do training. You can go to www.courses.dyslexianigeria.com and sign on to one of our trainings. Take them, learn about dyslexia. Mrs. Yesufu, I know we're almost getting to the hour. I wanted to summarize some of the wonderful things we learned from you today. You've told us about noticing the signs early, something that you did. Building relationships is not just about saying the child is in school, I've done my own, I've gone to school. You build the relationship with the teachers. You be your child's best advocate. Be committed to them. Celebrate their wins. Get useful resources. Focus on the process, not just the outcome. It's not about the C, it's about the effort that goes into getting that C. You know, our MD here, we use something called the spaghetti scenario, where we say most people eat spaghetti with a fork, and it's so easy to twirl and put in your mouth. But there are some children with a spoon who are trying so hard to pick up the spaghetti and put it in their mouth. That's the effort that you're focusing on. You've also talked about identifying their strengths, building on their strengths. Love your child. Don't compare them to anybody else. Help them get reasonable adjustments, you know, technology that can support them, get an assessment, get professional support to let you know how to help your child. I hope that you have enjoyed speaking with us today. I have loved learning from you. For someone, I know for me and for many Nigerians, you are a figure that we see that represents so many things in our hearts. And for you to be this close to us to discuss something that matters to all of us, I'm really grateful for your time. I'm really grateful for your honesty, for sharing this with us, for being open with us. And I learned so much. I know so many other people learned so much. Thank you so much for giving us this time. I'm sorry you've been in a bank this whole time, just trying to talk to us.
I'm glad that I got to do it. So thank you so much for having me. It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
For everybody that's still here, the second Africa Dyslexia Dialogue is happening on November the 4th at 12 noon. Please follow the link in our bio to register. It's free. We just want more people to learn about dyslexia and how to support the 1 in 5 of us that is on the dyslexic spectrum. Thank you, Mrs. Yesufu. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you, ma'am.
Well done.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Take care.
Well done. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.